Please subscribe my channel, like, share and press the bell button. Why did India land near the Moon's south pole? This unexplored area of the lunar surface has landscapes more ancient than any of the Apollo sites, and it may be rich in resources that could be useful to future human crews. After a 5-week journey, the Indian Chandrayaan-3 spacecraft began its descent to the lunar surface. The craft flipped into a vertical landing position, paused to hover about 450 feet up, then alighted on a dusty plateau between two large craters. India is on the Moon, S. Samanath, the chairman of Indian Space Research Organisation, ISRO, announced to a cheering crowd in Mission Control in Bengaluru on Wednesday, August 23. After the Soviet Union, the United States, and China, India is the fourth nation to successfully land on the Moon, and the first to visit the enigmatic South Pole region. It's absolutely wonderful to see our partners in India have a successful landing, says David Kring, a planetary scientist at the Lunar and Planetary Institute in Houston, Texas. It's very challenging to put a spacecraft on the surface of another body. The Chandrayaan-3 lunar lander attached to the propulsion module that carried it to the Moon. Photograph by ISRO. The difficulty of a moon landing has been underscored by a recent string of failures. Just days before the Chandrayaan-3 landing, Russia's Luna 25 lander smashed into the surface after an engine failed to properly shut down. A lander built by the Japanese company iSpace, carrying a rover built by the United Arab Emirates, ended catastrophically in April after the spacecraft misjudged its altitude and ran out of fuel. India's first craft to attempt a moon landing in September 2019 also crashed. From the day we started rebuilding our spacecraft after the Chandrayaan-2 experience, it has been breathe in, breathe out, Chandrayaan-3 for our team, said Kalpana Kalahasti, the associate project director of the mission, after the craft touched down. That team had more reason to celebrate the next morning in India when a small rover named Pragyan ramped down from the lander and India took a walk on the Moon. ISRO reported. The rover, whose name means wisdom in Sanskrit, and the lander Vikram, named for the Indian scientist Vikram Sarabhai who helped establish ISRO, will take scientific measurements for about 2 weeks. After that time, the area will plunge into a 2-week-long lunar night that the two spacecraft are not expected to survive since they run on solar power. The first image of the Moon's surface taken by India's Chandrayaan-3 spacecraft after its historic touchdown on August 23, 2023. Photograph by ISRO. Before long, however, a new wave of robots could join the Pragyan rover and Vikram lander on the Moon. A Japanese lander called SLIM, or the Smart Lander for Investigating Moon, is slated to launch Saturday, August 26, hitching a ride with a new space telescope, both developed by the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency, JAXA. Other major missions, such as NASA's Viper rover and China's Chang'e 6 sample return, are expected to launch in 2024, poised to reveal new parts of the Moon ahead of the Artemis 3 mission to return humans to the surface. It is a very exciting era, Kring says. It's going to be fun. Dialing in the landing. Chandrayaan-3 landed at about 69 degrees south latitude, closer to the lunar south pole than any craft before it. On Earth, this would be roughly equivalent to the outer coasts of Antarctica, though it is still a long way from the pole at 90 degrees, Kring says. They are in this near-polar terrain, which is very old, he says. It's far more ancient than any of the Apollo landing sites, and geologic studies of that terrain are very exciting. An engineer works with a prototype of the volatiles investigating polar exploration rover, Viper, in a testbed of quicksand-like soil in the Sin. Read more. Photograph by Mark Thiessen, National Geographic. The rover will analyze the mineral composition of the area, while the lander will use a seismometer to listen for moonquakes, which can occur as the Moon slowly cools and contracts, as well as measure temperatures and atmospheric conditions. But when the sun sets on Chandrayaan-3, the rover and lander are expected to go dark forever. They have already accomplished their most important goal, safely landing and deploying. Future missions will carry on the exploration of the lunar surface. India could return in a few years during a proposed joint mission with Japan. JAXA may not have to wait that long, though, as its slim lander could launch this week. The 8-foot-tall craft will orbit the Moon before attempting a pinpoint landing using image recognition technology to identify craters and precisely determine its location. During the final descent, a sophisticated radar will help the spacecraft land within 100 meters of its target. By contrast, the Chandrayaan-3 landing zone was an ellipse about 4 kilometers wide. This type of precision landing will be needed in the future to explore the deep craters and rugged slopes of the lunar South Pole. This jagged landscape has areas that never see sunlight, where scientists believe deposits of water ice may have accumulated, a vital resource for establishing a human outpost on the Moon. The magnificent peak known as Malapert Massif, lower left, was selected as an Artemis 3 candidate landing region. The summit rises more t. Read more. Photograph by NASA, GSFC, Arizona State University. The South Pole is an incredible world. Its topography is extreme, with these really large craters, very tall mountains, says Anthony Colaprete, the project scientist for the Viper mission at NASA's Ames Research Center in California. It is really a fascinating landscape.